Welcome back to the Historian's Tome, where ancient mysteries meet peaceful slumber. I'm your host, and tonight we're embarking on a tranquil journey to one of humanity's most remarkable yet forgotten civilizations. Before we begin our gentle exploration, please take a moment to like this video if you enjoy our content, and subscribe to join our growing community of history lovers who find peace in the stories of the past. I'm curious to know where you're listening from tonight. Are you nestled in bed in New York as the city lights twinkle outside your window? Perhaps you're in London, where the early morning fog is just beginning to lift. Or maybe you're in Tokyo, finding solace in these ancient tales as dawn approaches. Whatever time it is in your corner of the world, you've found the perfect moment to let your mind wander to a place that time nearly forgot. Tonight, we travel to the coastal desert of Peru, to a civilization that flourished when the great pyramids of Egypt were still young. This is the story of Caral, a city so ancient that it predates Stonehenge, so sophisticated that it challenges everything we thought we knew about early human civilization, and so peaceful that it offers the perfect backdrop for your journey into restful sleep. So settle into your most comfortable position, perhaps adjusting your pillow just so, and let your breathing become deep and natural. Close your eyes if you haven't already, and prepare to drift back in time over 4,000 years, to a place where the wisdom of ages whispers gently in the desert wind. In the quiet solitude of your mind, imagine yourself standing on a gentle hill overlooking the Supe Valley in Peru. The year is 1905, and you are the German archaeologist Max Uhle, though the significance of what lies before you will not be understood for nearly a century. The landscape stretches endlessly, painted in soft hues of tan and ochre, with the distant Andes Mountains creating a serene backdrop against the pale blue sky. Below you, what appears to be natural mounds dot the valley floor like sleeping giants. The wind carries the faint scent of desert sage and the whisper of ancient secrets. You might notice these mounds, but like so many before and after you move on, not knowing that beneath your feet lies one of humanity's greatest archaeological treasures. Let your mind drift forward now, floating gently through the decades like a leaf on a calm stream. The landscape remains unchanged, patient and eternal. Time moves differently here in the desert, where the absence of rain preserves all things, where the dry air holds memories like amber holds ancient insects. It is now 1994, and imagine yourself as Dr. Ruth Shady, a Peruvian archaeologist with the gentle persistence of those who uncover truth. You have returned to this valley with fresh eyes and new questions. The mounds that Max Uhle saw nearly 90 years earlier now speak to you differently. Where others see hills worn by wind and time, you see the careful architecture of human hands, the deliberate shaping of earth and stone. Feel the excitement building slowly, like dawn breaking over distant mountains. Your trained eye recognizes what others have missed. These are not natural formations, but the remains of stepped pyramids, plazas, and residential complexes. This is not just another archaeological site, but potentially something extraordinary. As you begin your careful excavation, each brush stroke of sand reveals more wonders. The first pottery shards emerge, then stone tools, then something that makes your breath catch in your throat. Organic. Materials so well preserved by the desert that you can still see the patterns woven into ancient textiles. But it is when the carbon dating results arrive that the true magnitude of your discovery becomes clear. The samples you have sent to laboratories around the world all tell the same incredible story. This site is not hundreds of years old, not even thousands, but over 4,000 years old. You have discovered a civilization that was building monumental architecture, while Europe was still deep in the Stone Age. Let this revelation wash over you like warm water as you sink deeper into relaxation. The implications are staggering, yet soothing in their ancient certainty. Here is proof that human civilization is far older and more sophisticated than anyone imagined. Here is evidence that our ancestors were building cities and developing complex societies in places and times we never expected. Now let your consciousness float gently downward, like settling into warm sand, as we explore the magnificent architecture that Ruth Shady and her team uncovered. Feel yourself becoming small enough to walk through this ancient city, your footsteps silent on pathways that once bustled with the daily life of a forgotten people. Before you rises the largest of Caral's pyramids, a structure so massive yet so harmoniously proportioned that it seems to grow naturally from the earth itself. The Pyramid of the Amphitheater, as archaeologists have named it, stands nearly 100 feet tall, its stepped sides catching the gentle light of the desert sun. Each stone was placed with careful intention, each angle calculated not just for stability, but for beauty. As you climb the wide steps leading to the pyramid's summit, notice how your breathing naturally slows and deepens. The ancient architects understood something profound about human psychology and the relationship between physical space and mental state. These steps are not rushed or steep, but invite a meditative ascent, each footfall bringing you closer to a state of peaceful contemplation. From the pyramid's peak, let your gaze drift across the city below. Caral is laid out according to principles that speak to something deep in the human soul. The buildings are arranged not in the rigid grid patterns we might expect, but in organic clusters that seem to breathe with the natural contours of the land. Open plazas create spaces for gathering and reflection, their circular and semicircular forms echoing the eternal patterns of sun and moon. Season and cycle count 6 major pyramids as your eyes sweep across the ancient cityscape, each one unique yet part of a greater harmony. The Pyramid of Gallinazo, the Pyramid of the Quarry, the Pyramid of the Huanca, their names given by modern archaeologists, but their presence eternal and calming. Between them, residential areas spread in gentle terraces, their low walls and courtyards designed to catch cooling breezes and provide shade during the heat of the day. What strikes you most profoundly as you survey this ancient metropolis is not its grandeur, but its sense of peace. Unlike other early civilizations that surrounded their cities with massive walls and fortifications, Caral seems to have existed in a state of perpetual tranquility. There are no weapons found here, no evidence of warfare or conflict. The city's defensive strategy appears to have been not walls or armies, but wisdom and trade, knowledge and cooperation. Feel this ancient peace seeping into your bones now, as if the very stones of Caral are sharing their accumulated serenity with you. For over 1,000 years, people lived and worked in this place, raised families, pursued knowledge, created art, and built a society based on harmony rather than conquest. Their legacy is not one of battles won or empires expanded, but of human potential realized in its most peaceful form. The amphitheater from which the Great Pyramid takes its name nestles into the structure's base like a cupped hand. Here, imagine the gentle murmur of voices as community leaders made decisions not through force or intimidation, but through discussion and consensus. The acoustics are perfect, allowing even whispered words to carry clearly to every listener, encouraging thoughtful speech rather than loud rhetoric. Allow your mind to drift now into the daily rhythm of life in ancient Caral, like settling into a comfortable dream where time moves at its own gentle pace. The sun rises slowly over the Andes Mountains, painting the adobe walls of the city in shades of gold and rose. The air is cool and clean, carrying the faint sound of the Supe River as it winds through the valley toward the distant Pacific Ocean. In the residential quarters, families are beginning their day with the same quiet rituals that have marked human mornings since time immemorial. Children's laughter echoes softly through courtyards as they chase each other around grinding stones and storage areas. Their play is unhurried, unstructured, the kind of natural joy that comes when childhood is safe and secure. The adults of Caral move with the measured pace of people who understand that life is not a race, but a journey. There is no frantic rush to begin the workday. no anxiety about productivity or achievement. Instead, there is a deep understanding that all things have their proper time and season. In the workshops scattered throughout the city, artisans are beginning their careful crafts. Master weavers select cotton fibers that have been growing in the fertile fields, irrigated by the Supe river's waters. Their fingers move with practiced ease, spinning threads so fine it seems almost ethereal, then weaving it into textiles of stunning complexity and beauty. The patterns they create are not merely decorative, but encode deep knowledge about astronomy, agriculture, and the spiritual beliefs that guide their society. Feel your own breathing synchronize with the rhythm of their work. The steady back and forth of the shuttle, the gentle tension of threads being woven together into something greater than the sum of their parts. This is meditation in motion, creation as a form of prayer, work as a pathway to inner peace. In the agricultural areas that surround the city, farmers tend crops with the patient attention of those who understand that nature cannot be rushed, only cooperated with. They have developed sophisticated irrigation systems that channel water from the Supe River through carefully planned canals, bringing life to the desert in a display of engineering that is both practical and beautiful. The crops they tend are diverse and nourishing. Cotton for textiles, gourds for containers and musical instruments, beans and squash for sustenance. But perhaps most importantly, they cultivate what may be humanity's first organized crop production, the systematic agriculture that allows civilization itself to exist. Their understanding of plant cycles, soil fertility and water management is profound, accumulated over generations and shared freely within the community. As the day progresses into afternoon, the pace remains unhurried. There are no clocks in Caral, no artificial deadlines or arbitrary schedules. Time is measured by the sun's path across the sky, by the natural rhythms of hunger and rest, by the deeper cycles of season and harvest that connect human life to the eternal patterns of the earth. Let your consciousness drift now toward one of Caral's most enchanting discoveries, the music that filled this ancient city with joy and harmony. In your mind's eye, see yourself drawn toward a workshop where master craftsmen are creating instruments that will sing with voices both haunting and beautiful. Here, patient artisans work with materials gifted by the natural world around them. Gourds grown in the fertile fields are carefully hollowed and shaped, their surfaces decorated with intricate designs that speak of cosmic knowledge and spiritual understanding. These will become drums that echo like distant thunder, calling people to celebration and ceremony. But it is the flutes that truly capture the soul of Caral's musical tradition. Carved from the bones of pelicans and condors, great birds that soar between earth and sky, these instruments seem to bridge the mortal and eternal realms. Each flute requires months to complete, as the craftsman must understand not just the mechanics of sound production, but the spiritual significance of creating an object that will carry human breath and emotion into the realm of the sacred. Imagine yourself holding one of these ancient flutes, feeling its smooth surface warm under your fingers. As you lift it to your lips, you become part of a tradition that stretches back over 4 millennia. The first notes you play seem to awaken echoes, not just from the stone walls around you, but from time itself. The music of Caral was not mere entertainment, but a technology of consciousness, a way of altering states of awareness and connecting individual minds to larger patterns of meaning. Archaeological evidence suggests that musical performances were integral to community gatherings, religious ceremonies, and the decision-making processes that governed this peaceful society. Feel the haunting beauty of these ancient melodies washing over you now, as if carried on the desert wind from across the centuries. The scales and tonalities are different from modern Western music, based on mathematical relationships that reflect the culture's deep understanding of cosmic harmony. Each note seems to vibrate not just in the air, but in the very bones and stones of the city. creating resonances that calm the mind and open the heart. In the great amphitheater, evening concerts would draw hundreds of people who came not to be entertained, but to be transformed. The acoustic properties of this ancient venue are so precisely calculated that every person present, regardless of where they sat, could hear each subtle inflection of voice and instrument. Music became a shared experience that unified the community in emotional and spiritual communion. The songs they sang have been lost to time. Their words evaporated like morning dew, but something of their essence remains in the very stones of Caral. If you listen with your inner ear, you might still hear echoes of their ancient melodies, lullabies that soothed children to sleep, work songs that made labor lighter, ceremonial chants that connected human consciousness to the great mysteries of existence. Some of the flutes discovered at Caral have been recreated by modern craftsmen, and when they are played, the sounds they produce seem to carry listeners directly into meditative states. The tones are pure and penetrating, with overtones that create complex harmonies in the mind and body. Scientists have discovered that these frequencies can actually alter brainwave patterns, inducing the same states of consciousness sought by meditators and mystics throughout history. Now let your awareness float gently toward the most remarkable aspect of Caral's civilization, the profound wisdom that allowed thousands of people to live together in harmony for over a millennium without warfare, without weapons, without the violent conflicts that plagued most early human settlements. In your mind's eye, see yourself sitting in the great circular amphitheater as twilight settles over the ancient city. The last light of day catches the stepped walls of the surrounding pyramids, creating a natural cathedral where the business of governance unfolds, not through force or coercion, but through patience, wisdom, and the revolutionary idea that decisions should be made through consensus rather than conquest. The leaders of Caral, though perhaps that word carries too many associations, with domination and hierarchy, were more like wise facilitators, people chosen not for their ability to command others, but for their skill in helping communities reach decisions that served everyone's highest good. They understood something that many modern societies have forgotten, that true authority comes not from the power to compel obedience, but from the ability to inspire willing cooperation. Archaeological evidence suggests that Caral's society was organized around principles that we might recognize today as remarkably progressive. There appear to have been multiple centers of influence rather than a single supreme ruler. Checks and balances that prevented any individual or group from accumulating too much power, and decision-making processes that valued input from all segments of society. Feel the deep peace that such a system must have created. As you imagine living in a community where your voice mattered, where conflicts were resolved through dialogue rather than violence, where the goal of leadership was not personal aggrandizement, but collective well-being. The stress and anxiety that characterize so much of modern life simply did not exist in this ancient sanctuary of human cooperation. The physical layout of the city itself reflects these governance principles. Rather than a single massive palace dominating the landscape, authority was distributed among multiple ceremonial centers, each with its own sphere of influence and responsibility. The residential areas show no sharp distinctions between rich and poor, powerful and powerless. While there were certainly differences in status and role, the archaeological evidence suggests a society with remarkably equitable distribution of resources and opportunities. Trade relationships extended throughout the region and beyond, but these were built on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. Caral's location gave it access to resources from mountains, coast, and jungle, and the city became a hub where materials and ideas flowed freely. Cotton and textiles moved toward the highlands, while obsidian and precious stones came down from the mountains. Fish and shells arrived from the Pacific coast, while exotic woods and medicinal plants came from the Amazon basin. But perhaps most importantly, Caral traded in knowledge. The city appears to have been a center of learning where astronomical observations, agricultural techniques, engineering innovations, and artistic traditions were developed and shared. This was governance as education, leadership as the cultivation and dissemination of wisdom for the benefit of all. The calendar systems, developed in Caral, show sophisticated understanding of celestial cycles that allowed for precise timing of agricultural activities. The architectural alignments throughout the city demonstrate knowledge of solar and stellar movements that rivals anything achieved by contemporary civilizations. Yet this knowledge was not hoarded by a priestly class or political elite, but appears to have been woven into the daily life of the entire community. As our journey through ancient Caral draws toward its peaceful conclusion, let your consciousness drift into the mystery that surrounds this civilization's end, a mystery as gentle and enigmatic as the desert wind that eventually covered its stones with protective sand. Unlike the violent destructions that ended so many ancient cities, the fires, invasions, and catastrophes that archaeologists typically uncover, Caral seems to have experienced what we might call a graceful conclusion. Around 1800 BCE, after flourishing for over 1,000 years, the great city was simply, quietly abandoned. No signs of warfare, no evidence of natural disaster, no indication of social collapse or violent revolution. The people simply walked away, leaving their carefully crafted buildings to the patient embrace of the desert. Imagine yourself as one of the last inhabitants, standing perhaps where we began our journey, on that gentle hill overlooking the Supe Valley. But now you are looking back at the city your ancestors built, a place where your family lived for countless generations in peace and prosperity. What could have motivated such a momentous decision? What wisdom guided this community to recognize that their time in this place had come to an end? Some archaeologists suggest that climate change may have played a role. The reliable river flows that supported Caral's agriculture may have begun to diminish as weather patterns shifted. The crops that sustained the population might have become less reliable, forcing difficult choices about the future. But even if environmental pressures contributed to the decision to leave, the manner of departure speaks to the same wisdom and cooperation that characterized the entire civilization. There is no evidence of panicked flight, no abandoned possessions scattered in haste, no signs that different groups within the city turned against each other in competition for dwindling resources. Instead, the archaeological record suggests an orderly, planned transition. Valuable items were carefully packed and taken along. Buildings were left clean and intact, as if their inhabitants intended to preserve them for some future purpose, or simply out of respect for the place that had sheltered them so long. Feel the poignancy of this departure, but also its profound wisdom. The people of Caral understood something that many civilizations have forgotten, that attachment to place, however beloved, can become a form of bondage. They had the courage to recognize when circumstances had changed beyond their ability to adapt, and the wisdom to move forward rather than cling to what was no longer sustainable. But in another sense, Caral never truly ended. The knowledge and wisdom developed there did not disappear with the last inhabitants. The agricultural techniques, astronomical observations, artistic traditions, and governance principles pioneered in this ancient city spread throughout the region, influencing later civilizations across the Andes and beyond. The genetic legacy of Caral's people continues in their descendants, who still live throughout Peru and maintain many of the same values that made their ancestors' civilizations so remarkable. The emphasis on community cooperation over individual competition, the reverence for natural cycles and environmental harmony, the understanding that true wealth lies not in accumulation but in the well-being of all. These principles echo through Andean cultures to this day, and now, through the patient work of archaeologists like Ruth Shady and her international team, Caral speaks to us across the millennia with a message of hope and possibility. Here is proof that human societies can organize themselves around principles of peace rather than war, cooperation rather than competition, wisdom rather than mere power. As you prepare to return from this ancient sanctuary to your own time and place, carry with you the deep tranquility that characterizes everything about Caral. Let the peaceful rhythms of this forgotten civilization synchronize with your own breathing, your own heartbeat, your own journey into restful sleep. The desert wind that buried Caral stones for thousands of years continues to blow across the Supe Valley, carrying whispers of ancient wisdom to those who know how to listen. Tonight, as you drift into dreams, you join the countless generations who have found peace in these timeless patterns, who have discovered that the deepest treasures are not gold or silver, but the simple, profound joy of living in harmony with each other and with the eternal cycles of earth and sky. The story of Caral is ultimately the story of human potential realized in its most beautiful form, a reminder that we are capable of so much more than the conflicts and competitions that too often dominate our modern world. In the patient stones of this ancient city lies evidence that we can choose cooperation over conflict, wisdom over mere cleverness, peace over the endless struggles for dominance that characterize so much of human history. Rest now in this ancient peace, and let the gentle wisdom of Caral guide you into the same deep tranquility that blessed this remarkable civilization for over 1,000 years. Sleep well, carried by dreams of a better world that once existed and might exist again.